Do you believe in miracles? Well, I was raised in South Central LA, which is the inner city of Los Angeles. It's a gang-infested area. Raised by my mom, who was unfortunately addicted to alcohol and drugs. Dad was in and out of my life. The last time I saw him was when I was 12 years old. I remember growing up in Los Angeles, and one of the things we would have to do if you stayed out too late when the street lights came on, you'd have to duck behind trees and cars because of drive-by shootings. Basically what that meant is a rival gang would drive by and literally try to shoot you and kill you if they saw you walking down the street. You could be an innocent bystander. The crazy thing is I thought everybody lived that way. I mean, that was part of my life when I was growing up. The statistic at that time in the late 80s was if you were a black, male, African American, you were either gonna be incarcerated by the age of 18 or you would die by 21 years old. I remember growing up, my grandmother raised my sister and I, and she was very instrumental in my life. I mean, basically she was the foundation. I would say probably the biggest impact that she made on me when I was growing up was taking me to church. At that time, obviously I didn't know that, but that was the first time I was really introduced to God. She would take us to church faithfully on Sundays. We would go there. She would pray. I remember her praying at night over our protection. She passed away when I was 12 years old. And when she passed away, my sister and I didn't know this until I got older. We were put up for adoption and almost placed in foster care, but my uncle stepped up and was a critical part of my life. He stepped up and took my sister and I in. And I remember growing up and this brother being mean. Right? He was on us hard, and at that time I didn't understand it. Matter of fact, there's points where I don't want to say I hated him, but I strongly disliked him. And a lot of it was because he was on me about making sure that, I worked hard in school, I completed my task, and at that point in my life, I didn't really understand that. But now being older, I understand the importance of him being hard on me because that's part of my success now. And interesting enough, when I moved with him, he also made sure that God was an important part of our life as well. Yeah, now that I look back, I'm very thankful that my uncle took my sister and I in. But I would be lying to you if I didn't tell you that when I was a teenager, like I said, I strongly disliked him and really would do anything to get out of his house. And so I had already decided that once I turned 18, I was going to the military. My principal from high school got wind of this information, and because I was a very influential and positive role model for my peers in school, he offered me an opportunity to go to an HBCU, which is a historically black college or university, which is really how I got to Ohio. I went to Central State University and graduated with an engineering degree. Met my wife at that time, got married. We had two amazing kids, Trey and Victoria, which you guys know. And unfortunately, our marriage didn't work out, and we ended up getting a divorce. And anybody who knows, that's not something you plan, and it was very difficult. And so I struggled with depression at that time, and even feeling like a failure. And at times wanted to quit. And so I kept working, kept pushing, kept giving my best. And a lot of people don't know, I went through a point also at that time in my life of even being homeless. Some families took me in, but I used to go to the local it's a place called the Caring Kitchen. It's a homeless shelter, but I would go there to eat. So during that time in my life, when we were married, we were faithful in church. We were involved in church, and I was at a point where I kind of was fed up with God a little bit. So some people would call it backsliding, sinning. I was off the hook, needless to say. And I remember some people from the church signing me up for this thing called the Emmaus Walk. My pastor literally coming to get me, and I was hiding from him. I was trying not to be seen by this brother. And he picked me up and take me to this, it's called a ministry, but it's called the Emmaus Walk. And basically you spend the weekend there reflecting on life and spending time with God. And that probably was one pivotal point in my life where another insert in God in my life at a point where hopelessness is probably just a basic word to use. I mean, I felt like there was absolutely no hope for me. I'm divorced, I'm not with my kids, I don't have a good job. And then my pastor steps in my life again to give me hope, to say, you can do this. And so with that, some doors opened up. I started to get some jobs. I started to work little ins and out jobs. I became a migrant instructor. I worked with some Spanish-speaking people to teach them how to speak English. Went from that to working for car dealerships. I was a custodian. I coached junior high and high school basketball. Then the opportunity opened, right, for me to have an opportunity to work at Urbana University as an assistant college coach. During that process, I was also a probation officer. So we've got a lot going on. I'm a probation officer by day, assistant coach by night, and then more doors start opening. FCA, which is Fellowship of Christian Athletes, doesn't exist on Urbana University. And the coach there wants me to start leading it. So I started leading these groups at Urbana University called FCA. And then the following year, my pastor and I started leading these groups. And now my life starts to become what at one point was just a story or a phase of not having any hope, to me sharing the hope that God had given me to do something I love, which is coach basketball. It was a dream of mine. I love basketball. And then I'm at Urbana University and I get the opportunity to be the head coach there. And I was there for interim coach for about a few months or so, maybe about 3 or 4 months. And then that didn't work out the way I wanted it to work out. And I felt betrayed and I felt hurt. And I wanted to stay away from basketball. I actually got to a point because of some things that happened, I didn't want to see a basketball again. The biggest struggle for me was even trying to accept that I was going to have life without basketball. It was a very dark time in my life. This family offered me the opportunity to train their son. And honestly, I did it more out of financial obligation than probably how I felt at the time. Because what I was feeling during those times is I was having suicidal thoughts, struggling with depression, feeling like a failure, not understanding my purpose anymore. And what the enemy meant for my destruction, God turned around and made it good. Here I was training in a barn, working with one kid, and just in a matter of years, I live in a barn that's 11,000 square feet, that has a gym that's 3,000 square feet on the top floor. I have 4 training facilities. I train hundreds of kids a year. Went from 1 AAU team to 7 AAU teams. I'm remarried. I have a home. So I guess if you want to know if I believe in miracles, I am a miracle.